attendance, and I thank you for coming today in this somewhat chilly day. For those of you I haven't met, I'm Mike Pearson, chairman of the board of Philiport. Before we get started today, I have the distinct honor of both welcoming and acknowledging a number of distinguished guests and dignitaries present here today. And on that list, we have Representative Cephas. Would you acknowledge yourself? Thank you. Representative Neilson. And Representative Hohenstein is somewhere here. Ah, thank you. Their dedication and leadership continues to shape both the city and the port. A special thank you to Governor Shapiro for joining us today and for your unwavering support of our port and its initiatives. We hear the governor is just here for a few minutes, and I want to share my personal story before we begin. The port and the river holds a special place for me because my father worked a Sun ship, and just down the river, that job allowed my family to become middle class. And my father and my mother were part of that great migration from the South, where Philadelphia opened doors economically, it provided education and hope. And I think the riverfront can provide that today. Through my father's hard work, that allowed my family to thrive. And the legacy continues, and that's why I'm here today, and my support as chair of Philiport. Today we gather at Philiport in a virtual economic engine, which we'll call it, for this region, which we sometimes underappreciate. The port is just not a hub of commerce, it's a lifeline that sustains nearly 12,000 jobs. And I say that again, 12,000 jobs, providing livelihood and opportunities for countless families. Cargo loaded and unloaded by the ILA, men and women, and trucked by Teamsters to stores and warehouses all over the region are part of this mix. Cargo that impacts each and every one of the homes, work, and even the cars we drive are part of this ecosystem. Those docks and hard-working men and women that make up the port community are responsible for handling everything from fruits and vegetables, which we have today, to TVs, furniture, prescription drugs, and even automobiles. Products we all rely on in daily life. The port is not only critical to our city, it is the entire state that benefits from this activity. It serves as a gateway to international trade, connecting the commonwealth to a global market and facilitating the flow of goods that are essential to this economy. The port supports a wide range of industries, including manufacturing, art, agriculture, retail, and contributes significantly to this state's growth. The supply chain is delicate, however, and we must do all we can to preserve the jobs we have, built for the future, and ensure that the Port of Philadelphia has the resources and tools it needs for the next chapter of growth. With the title of Most Productive Port, has ranked by the World Bank in the world, not the country, the world. That's Philiport. And I'm confident that we have the wherewithal to do our job to grow the port, but tariffs represent an economic challenge that will impact our operations. Through resilience and innovation, we can navigate the obstacles and continue to forge the next chapter of growth for the Port of Philadelphia. With that, thank you for coming out today, and I offer to you now the honored guest, the Governor of Pennsylvania, and what I will call a legacy of new leadership that'll get this country back to our democratic principles that were born right here in Philadelphia. Governor.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much for your leadership. I was grateful when you answered the call to lead here at the port. I'm grateful for the work you're doing, and I'm very grateful for the other board members who are here who dedicate their time and their attention to helping grow this port and helping make it the best port in America. So I want to say thank you to you and to all of the members who are here. I want to thank Jeff Theobald, the CEO of Philiport. I want to thank my buddy for a lot of years, Boise Butler. Thank you, Boise. And Dan Duffy from the Longshoremen. I want to thank them very much. And the 12,000 people that go to work here every day as part of our great union workforce down here at the port. I see our Teamsters sitting up front. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you every single day. And I want to thank the Holts. I'm joined by Leo and the Holt family. They have taught me so much over so many years about the importance of this port, and I know we'll hear from him in a moment. And I know you acknowledge, thank you, Mr. Chairman, the members of the General Assembly who are here. I want to thank the chairman of the Transportation Committee, in particular, Ed Neilson, who's with us. I want you to think about that. The chairman of the Transportation Committee represents this port back in Harrisburg and represents the interests of all transportation needs across the Commonwealth. Eddie, thank you very much for your leadership, and of course, Chairwoman Cephas, Joe Hohenstein, and others who are here. It's good for me to be back at this port today. Vital, of course, to the Philadelphia waterfront and a critically important global center of trade. You know, most folks see the port every day and just think about the work that's happening that day. They don't think about the 300 years, the 3 centuries of storied history that spans back since the founding of this nation, and before the founding of this nation, and before the founding of this Commonwealth. It was here the newcomers stepped off ships and arrived to this great city for the first time. It was here that goods produced in Philadelphia, once known as the workshop of the world, embarked on destinations all across the globe, taking the things that were crafted by the hands of Philadelphians and bringing it to others across the world. Today, of course, the port remains a major player in global trade and a critical piece of the Pennsylvania and American economy. I want you to consider this. Philiport contributes $1.5 billion to our Commonwealth's economy each and every year. It directly employs 12,000 people from the greater Philadelphia region, supporting an additional 66,000 maritime-related jobs on cargo ships and barges and tugboats and ship repairs and logistics and so many other critically important fields. Over the last decade, the Commonwealth, through my predecessor, Governor Wolf, and I, have invested $500 million of state funds to improve the port's infrastructure, to modernize some of its busiest terminals, to help buy equipment like those massive blue cranes that are behind us that allow us to hoist cargo on and off these ships. These investments are critically important. And as a result of those investments, we have seen tremendous growth in this port. Today, Philiport is the global leader for food and grocery imports. In fact, 20% of all of the fruits imported to the United States of America come right through Philly, come right through this port. That's over $3 billion worth of fruit that's unloaded here and then moves over to our grocery stores, more than any other port in the nation. Y'all know I'm competitive as hell. I am damn glad that Pennsylvania is leading the way in this critically important category. Last year, a record volume of container cargo passed through Philiport. That represented a 13% increase over the year before. Those investments are paying off. And last week, the port closed the books on the busiest quarter in its 300-year history. It's incredibly impressive. The demand is real, and the folks here at this port are stepping up in a big way to meet consumer demand and to help this port grow. But I'll tell you what, we are facing some serious economic uncertainty right now. And I wanted to be here today back at the port because I'm worried about how the decisions that are being made right now in Washington, D.C. and at the White House are going to hurt this port. I just finished a brief tour where I heard about the impact of these new tariffs imposed by President Trump and how it's going to harm us and harm our operations here at the port. I know it's been obviously confusing and chaotic, as most things typically are with this president, and news about these tariffs have been a little hard to follow. The president just yesterday blinked and removed some of the tariffs that he imposed. But despite all of that chaos, the fact remains that the tariffs in place today affecting this port, affecting the people of Pennsylvania, affecting the global economy, are much higher than any tariffs that were in place 75 days ago before this president took office. It's also important to note that the tariffs that are in place today are higher than any other time in the last 100 years in this nation. As a result of these tariffs, every good from a foreign country comes through this port is now subject to at least a 10% tax. And for some goods like steel and aluminum and cars, a lot of cars coming through this port, that tax is 25%. Those tax increases, along with the chaos of the past week, have upended global trade, and our markets are still reeling from the uncertainty. This is going to have a real and negative impact on Pennsylvanians. Let me explain by giving you a concrete example of something that happens at this port every day and is happening literally behind me right now. As I mentioned before, Philiport handles more fruit than any other port in America. So when Del Monte Foods, one of the largest food distribution companies in the world and one of Philiport's largest importers, wants to get their bananas to market, a whole lot of those bananas come right through Philly. Here's how it works. The banana that you buy at the grocery store, well, it starts on a farm in Costa Rica or Guatemala. Del Monte, the company, harvests it off a tree, packages it up, and puts it on a shipping container like the ones that are behind me. Del Monte then puts those containers on one of these massive cargo ships, sails it all the way from Central America right here to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. When that ship gets here, and when any cargo ship arrives in the United States, inspectors from the U.S. Customs reviews that shipment and makes sure what's in the container matches what's on the company's paperwork. Once all that checks out, our skilled longshoremen here at Philiport, guys like Dan Duffy, well, they operate these massive cranes behind me to unload these containers. Now, all of that, the harvesting, the shipping, the unloading, that costs Del Monte money. Let's say, for example, it costs them $10,000 to harvest it, package it, and ship it around the world to get it here. But now, once that container reaches land right here in Philadelphia, it's subject to those new tariffs that Donald Trump put in place. So as a result, Del Monte now has to pay 10% tax to the federal government on the value of that container. So in this scenario, if those bananas cost $10,000 for Del Monte to harvest, package, and ship here, they now cost $11,000 because of that tariff. So in fact, when Del Monte goes to sell that container of bananas to Giant down here in Center City, Philadelphia, they're adding a $1,000 surcharge. That means Giant has to pay more to stock bananas at their grocery store. And because it costs Giant more money to stock those bananas, it will likely mean more money coming out of your pocket and out of the pockets of people here in Philly and all across Pennsylvania just to buy those same exact bananas that were coming here all along and predating Donald Trump's tax. And look, it's not just these bananas. Those tariffs President Trump put in place applies to nearly everything. That means our pineapples and our grapes, our pears, and other food products like coffee beans and cocoa powder. All things that grow in the tropics are going to be more expensive when they arrive here in Philly for Pennsylvanians to consume. It means that TV and that new sound system you want to get your kid for their birthday, or that new shirt or jacket you want to buy for your spouse, all that is going to be more expensive. I was walking on Main Street, or Queen Street, as it's known in Lancaster, just yesterday. I stopped by Bellaboo, this great baby store in Lancaster run by a wonderful woman named Laura Haggis. All the products there, many of the products there, are coming from overseas. In fact, a bunch come through the Philadelphia port. She's got to pass on higher prices to consumers because of Donald Trump's tariffs. Beyond the cost of groceries and these goods, that new shirt you want to buy, that banana you want to eat, the port is a massive operation, a key driver of our economy that needs constant investment of capital to keep that operation going. You heard me say before, the Commonwealth over the last decade has invested over $500 million in this port. Private companies like Holt have invested millions of their own capital. But the chaos and the uncertainty around these tariffs are going to cause companies to hold back, to keep capital in their pockets. Great banker here in Philly, Richard Green of First Trust, describes it this way, and he's exactly right. When you're driving your car at nighttime on a windy road and it gets real foggy, what do? You pull over because you want to be careful. A lot of folks are pulling over right now. They're keeping the capital in their pockets. That's going to stymie growth in our industries, from the port to the high-rises downtown in Philly to our farmlands in rural communities. Keeping capital in your pocket because of the chaos that Trump created down in D.C. I'm working hard every day together with my partners in the legislature to bring manufacturing back to Pennsylvania. We've been succeeding in that effort. But here's the thing, there's only so much we can bring back. We can't grow bananas here in Pennsylvania. They got to come from somewhere. And those bananas that have been coming from Central America now, for no reason, cost a whole lot more for consumers in the market. We've got to be careful. We've got to listen to the needs of consumers, and we've got to push back against the chaos that Donald Trump created just by simply pushing a button and starting a trade war with our allies. I know the news can be very confusing in this space, but the bottom line is this. Because of the decisions that the White House has made, stuff costs more in America today. Capital is on the sidelines. There's more uncertainty in the marketplace. That's bad for the port, and that is bad for Pennsylvania's economy, and it is bad for consumers. We've been working hard in Pennsylvania on a bipartisan basis to cut costs. Together, we've cut taxes for seniors, for families trying to afford childcare, for small businesses. We've put money back in people's pockets. We've invested in job creation. We've brought $3.7 billion in private capital investment to the Commonwealth just in the last year and a half. Pennsylvania is on the rise. We are moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, our job has gotten even harder because of these decisions coming out of Washington, D.C. I hope they rethink this chaotic plan. I hope they think about our longshoremen. I hope they think about our Teamsters. I hope they think about that family who's going to the grocery store in Philly, just wants to get the bananas for the same price they were a week before. I hope the cooler heads will prevail, the chaos will yield, and we'll come back to calm and certainty in our marketplace. That's what we need. That's what our consumers need. That's what our workers need. And that's what we're trying to deliver every single day in the Commonwealth. I want to thank all of the folks here at the port who do great work. I especially want to thank those with the hands of organized labor who who do this backbreaking work every day so folks can get those bananas in their supermarkets, so they can get the stuff they need to get for their kids. Great work happens here at the port every day, and I salute our wonderful workers who do that, especially great guys like Dan Duffy, who's been doing this work for so many years and doing it in the exact right way. Dan, the floor is yours. Thank you very, very much for your time, everybody.
Good day to everyone. My name is Dan Duffy. I worked as a longshoreman at the Port of Philadelphia close to 55 years. My father was a longshoreman too, and I grew up on the waterfront. Longshoremen have an important job in making sure things get from this port to your home. We unload and load cargo, and we've done that important work for more than a century. When you buy fruit at the grocery store or a new couch for your living room, that item is there because longshoremen load and unload it safely and efficiently. At the Port of Philadelphia, we have thousands of union workers, and we should continue to grow and invest in this port. But every time someone plays politics, it hurts Pennsylvania and it hurts the workers. These tariffs put in place by the federal government are just a tax to raise costs on consumers. They aren't going to grow our port operations. In fact, they may hurt the port. Instead of putting extremely high tariffs on goods, we want our leaders to support common sense investments in domestic manufacturing. That's what will help create more jobs and opportunity at the port and the waterfront. On behalf of the International Longshoremen's Association and the dedicated members of the ILA locals in the Port of Philadelphia, we want to thank Governor Shapiro and his administration for supporting our workers. Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you very much.
At this time, I'd like to introduce Leo Holt.
Thanks, Governor.
Governor, Mr. Chairman, distinguished guests, folks of the ILA, folks of the Teamsters, machinists. I was just on my way to a birthday party and they told me to show up and speak. The United States is going to celebrate its 250th birthday here in Philadelphia in a little over a year. The Navy and Marine Corps will celebrate their birthdays here in a little less than 6 months. There's a lot of things we need for that party. What we need for that party, I see a jarhead right there. What we need for that party is we need free and open trade. We need dedication and investment in facilities, and we need investment in the training of the future generations of workers that are going to come here in Philadelphia. Governor Shapiro, we are grateful to you. We're grateful to your predecessor in making a big bet here. The next big bet is going to bring thousands of more jobs here to Philadelphia. The projects that we have already undertaken are doing the job, and they're making good on the bet that you've made. So we thank you for that. Someone asked me earlier, what would I say if the administration was here? I would say, untie our hands. Give us the ability to roll up our sleeves and do what our late father used to say is the best help you'll ever get is at the end of your own two hands. That is how the ethos that we live by here in this port. It's what the people do, and it's what Mr. Butler was able to ring out to the governor earlier. This is ranked as the most productive port of its size in the world. Not in the United States, in the world. And it's there not because of my skills, it's there because of the skills of the men and women of the ILA, the men and women of the Teamsters, and everything else. And it's there, going back to Dan's point, about the generations of people that have worked here. Dan's here, his dad worked here. I see a Mulgrew sitting right in the front. Coyles, Cullens, Elwood Gunther, names that were here forever. When I think about the Teamsters that we work with, John's one of the sons of the Teamsters that have been there for how many generations, John? 3 generations? His dad, his brother, and their uncles, cousins have all worked in these neighborhoods and have made this city what it is. And this city has made them successes. Let us build on our success. And to do that, we need infrastructure. So therefore, I'm going to yield my spot
to the guy who's in charge of the infrastructure. We are grateful to have a son of Philadelphia and a son of Philadelphia labor sitting in a prime spot to provide infrastructure funding throughout the Commonwealth. This governor and his team have raced to replace bridges at a speed and a pace and a success rate faster than anyone has in the last 30 years. This is the kind of infrastructure bets that you have to make if you want to have a wholesome and holistically a successful Commonwealth that's safe. And so, Chairman Neilson, thank you very much for being here. Welcome back to the Packer Avenue Marine Terminal, and he's going to tell you a story about what he did when he was here the last time.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Representative Ed Neilson. I am from Northeast Philadelphia, and I proudly serve as Majority Chair of the Pennsylvania House Transportation Committee. Everyone here today understands how critical the Port of Philadelphia is to the Commonwealth's success and future success. With the economic impact of almost $2 billion, nearly 7 million tons, metric tons of cargo moving through this facility every single year, including almost 282,000 cars. A lot of us who go to Jersey Shore, we see those cars as we cross the bridge, and we never really thought of where they come from. We don't think we just take advantage. But with the Trump tariffs, people are going to start making choices to either buy a car or buy a home. It's scary what happens, and so we have to be careful. So it's not just about cargo, it's about people. It's about the men and women who keep the port running, hard working every day, support their families, and drive our economy. I was raised right here in Philadelphia in a union household. You've heard plenty of elected officials say they were raised in union families. That's great, but I'm not just talking the talk. I'm a dues-paying member of the IBW, Local 98 here in Philadelphia. I have 5 sons. 3 of my sons are members of unions. And I had the opportunity of working here at the port as a young journeyman. As we look at the cranes that are unloading this ship, what you learn is that's 11 flights of stairs you guys must climb to get up to that little box on top. And if that little box needed electrical work, I was the guy they sent up to do it. The warmest day in that box was 22 below zero. We had heaters to warm our hands. It was craziness. Unlike the Duff family, I made it 4 weeks. I could not do it no more. So that's when I learned how to appreciate what longshore men and women do down here at the port. All right. I gotta say, listen, the governor gets shit done. I mean, you've heard it before, he gets shit done. I am so proud to stand with him today here to get shit done. Whether the port's here in Erie, Pittsburgh, or right here in Philadelphia, he supports family-sustaining jobs. He supports all the hard-working men and women of Pennsylvania. From cocoa beans to fresh produce to automobiles, the products that Pennsylvania count on every single day, this vital hub is at risk. The unpredictable decisions in Washington, like the sweeping tariffs, are threatening to raise the cost of goods, disrupt the supply chains, and the economy that depend on all of us. Those decisions don't just hit the spreadsheets, they hit Pennsylvania. And it's not just in Washington, I gotta say, it's not just in Washington. Inaction in Harrisburg has also caused some consequences too. We talk about it just today. SEPTA made an announcement they might have to cut services 50%. 50%. And if we don't step up and invest in public transportation, transit agencies like SEPTA will be forced to raise fares, cut services, and literally go down. Now, who gets hurt? The workers. The workers right here. The workers right here at the port. So last year, the House Democrats, we passed 3 times a transportation package to make sure all these workers can get to work all across Philadelphia and Pennsylvania. Transportation hits all 67 counties. This year, the governor proposed again another $300 million to make sure the workforce and the economic engine of Philadelphia and beyond keep going, because we are the engine that keeps it going. So I fully support that proposal and more, and I'm hopeful that the Republican Senate will finally step up and actually pass this legislation so we can make sure the port continues to thrive. I've had the honor, I've known the governor before he's the governor when he first ran for office. And he never blinked on the working men and women of Pennsylvania. As a former union official and now a state official, every time we've asked him for something, he's always stepped up. And he stepped up real strong and real hard. And I am glad not only to call him my governor, but call him my friend. And I'll tell you, if you ever talk about having a friend in Pennsylvania, it's Governor Rendell. Oh, Governor.
That's all right. Rendell was good, too. You're good.
Well, that's because I work for Governor Rendell. And that's when you first got elected, Governor. Remember when
Thank you, man.
we made you deputy speaker?
Yep.
But we'll take some questions now. And that's going to be the soundbite, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. I'll never get invited to speak again.
No, you're good. You're good.
Sure?
You're good. Yeah, we'll have Representative Cephas next time. Let's take a few questions. Let's take a few questions from the media. I know it's chilly, and we'll get you out of here. Julie? Question was about SEPTA's announcement of cuts, and let me just say, we face a dire situation for mass transit agencies all across Pennsylvania, from Pittsburgh to Philly and rural communities in between. It's why, for the last two budgets, I've proposed historic levels of funding for mass transit agencies across Pennsylvania, including enough additional money for SEPTA that would allow them to stave off all cuts. My proposal has been passed by the House Democrats 3 separate times. And 3 separate times that has gone to the Senate of Pennsylvania, where they've taken absolutely no action. We heard earlier today from SEPTA that they can no longer wait. I bought them some additional time last year by flexing some dollars, money that was scheduled to go to roads and bridges, that I moved over to fund SEPTA to give lawmakers in the House and Senate more time to come together on a plan this year to get SEPTA and other mass transit agency funding to my desk for me to sign. The time is now to act. I've spoken to Leader Bradford, the leader of the House. He intends to bring this up next month and pass it again and send it to the Senate for their action. We will all work together, as we have in the past, to find bipartisan agreement. We've got to make sure we do so on mass transit this time. All 67 counties in Pennsylvania are impacted, and here in southeastern Pennsylvania, this is a crisis that needs to be addressed. John? I haven't seen his tweet. I'm sorry, I can't really comment on it. I haven't seen. We're not a sanctuary state, but I haven't seen it. We are thrilled that Pennsylvania is going to be the center of the universe next year as America celebrates America 250, the 250th anniversary of the greatest nation on the face of the earth. And we're going to have a whole bunch of big events here throughout the Commonwealth, from Major League Baseball All-Star Game here in Philly to the NFL Draft in Pittsburgh, and a whole bunch of other events as well. We will be prepared for that. I know Mayor Parker and her team have a great group in place. They're working on it. We're coordinating closely with them. In my budget proposal, I've asked for north of $60 million to fund the state share of these important events to make sure we can put our best foot forward. As to the second part of your question, obviously it's going to be harder for families to afford to go to these games and experience all of these wonderful things. Though a whole bunch will be free in Philly and across Pennsylvania, some things are going to cost money, and families because of these tariffs, because of the rising prices that the Trump administration has put in place on the good people of Pennsylvania, they're going to have to make choices. It's going to be much harder for them. For our part in the state, we're going to do everything we can to continue to cut costs. Thanks to Chairwoman Cephas and others, we've been able to come together, Democrat and Republican alike, to cut taxes for seniors, for families, for small businesses. And I'm proposing to cut taxes even more so the good people of Pennsylvania can keep more money in their pockets at a time when the federal government is increasing their prices. We're going to do everything we can to help make sure Pennsylvanians are protected, but we've also got to be mindful that their lives are being made much tougher because of some of these chaotic decisions coming out of D.C. Go ahead. I'll come to you next, all right?
The owner of Crozier, Prospect Medical Holdings, has told the Texas bankruptcy judge that they may put in a motion to close the hospital as soon as today. They're meeting to put together $9 million to buy another 2 weeks. Do you expect Crozier to close?
Yes. Prospect,
taking action to keep it open?
Prospect, which is a private equity firm that's been operating Crozier, has been threatening to close for months and months and months. I want you to know that my office, together with the Attorney General's office, lawmakers, and many others, have been at the table, including quite literally right now at the table, trying to work on a sustainable solution. The Commonwealth has invested millions and millions of dollars to keep Crozier operating while we can come up with a long-term solution. Now is the time for that. I know that regional healthcare leaders have been coming together to try and put forth ideas on how they can help manage the future of Crozier. It's critically important to Delco, it's critically important to this region, and we're working on it literally at this moment. I've heard from a lot of businesses that are wondering if they're going to get their shipments or getting notice from suppliers that the materials or the products that they were counting on are no longer going to be able to come or going to cost a whole lot more. There is all kinds of confusion in the marketplace because of the confusion that Donald Trump has brought to this. Certainly, we need more trade balance in the world and in this country. Certainly, we need to fix some of the bad trade deals of the past. But what the president has done here is injected chaos and increased prices on Pennsylvania consumers. That's not the answer. I think we need private equity out of healthcare in Pennsylvania. I've called for legislation to do that, and I think the more time, the more we have private equity managing healthcare institutions, the worse it is for patients. Yeah.
Your administration yesterday sent a letter to the U.S. Department of Education regarding the president's anti-DEI order. How confident are you that that response will be sufficient to protect the school district's funding?
Pennsylvania is fully complying with civil rights laws in this country. The Department of Education certified that yesterday to the White House. We'll see what they do next. Yeah. Are you quoting John in your question? That's.
If it's a good question, it's a good question. What are your thoughts more generally on President Trump's handling of both illegal and legal immigration in Pennsylvania, including deportations of undocumented immigrants, former refugees, former green card holders?
I've said for many years, we need comprehensive immigration reform in this country. We need to secure our border. We need a pathway for citizenship for those who have been living here in this country for quite some time. And we need to establish clear rules of the road for folks who want to come here. And you got to come here legally if you want to be in this country. I think it is important that we have comprehensive immigration reform. And let's be honest about it. Through Democratic and Republican administrations, Democratic and Republican Congresses, over the last decade or more, that has not happened. What the president is doing right now, in many ways, is instilling fear in too many of our immigrant communities across Pennsylvania, taking people who are otherwise legally permitted to be here and remove them without due process from their communities. It is critically important that we follow the laws of the land, that individuals have due process rights, and that we also make clear that immigration into this country needs to be done legally. Those things are not mutually exclusive. They can all be done at the same time. We can have due process, we can have compassion, we can have clear rules of the road, we can have a secure border. We need to do all of that. What I've seen from this White House so far has been mostly haphazard and has not actually accomplished the task that I think most Americans think needs to be accomplished in D.C. Okay? Thank you all very much.